Welcome to The Bottom Line. I'm Pastor Rick Utze from Maranatha Community Fellowship in Plain City, Ohio. You know, there was a TV show years ago called Cheers, and the theme song that I had to think about today when I was reading through Genesis was Where Everybody Knows Your Name. You know, I think all of us probably, to some degree or another, at some point in our lives, were wishing that more people would know our names, right? Like, if we'd be famous and well known, maybe with that would come some more of the benefits of this life, more money, more whatever, right? And God has just been teaching me that's not the important thing in life. As a matter of fact, when I was reading through Genesis, we're in a series, Redemption, the rest of the story, and it talks about in the Old Testament how God was calling out a people for himself. So Abraham, well known, like Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, right? The patriarchs of the children of Israel. Jesus Christ came from that line. He was the seed of that line. I mean, God's redemptive story flows through them. Everybody knows their name that was associated with Israel, that was associated with the Jews, that was associated with the church. Like, they were well known. And in chapter 24 of Genesis, Abraham wanted to find a wife for his son Isaac. And this is a very important decision, right? All of us know that a spouse is a major life decision. And we want that to be a decision, right, that lasts, that relationship lasts for as long as we live. And so Abraham was trusting one of his servants, his most trusted senior servant. He says, I want you to go back to my country, and I want you to find a wife for my son Isaac. And the servant is like, well, wait a minute, what if I go there and there's nobody there who wants to come back with me? And Abraham says, you know what? The God who called me here, his angel will go before you, and you'll find someone. And in verse Genesis 24:45, here is Abraham's servant, and he talks about how he prayed to God. And it says that when he went on this journey, that he prayed, right, that God would lead him right to the right woman. And he did. He led him to the woman. He led him to the well. The woman drew water for him and for his camels. And when he went back to talk to the family, he said this, before I had finished praying silently, there was Rebekah coming with her jug on her shoulder, and she went down to the spring and drew water. So I said to her, please let me have a drink. So here was this servant praying. And down in verse 48 it says, I knelt low and worshiped the Lord and blessed the Lord, the God of my master Abraham, who guided me on the right way to take the granddaughter of my master's brother for his son. So here we have this servant who was on a journey. He went and he prayed to God, and God listened to him. And yet we don't know his name. He was just known as the servant of Abraham. And he was able to pray to the God of Abraham, and he had faith in that God, and he worshiped that God, and he praised that God, and he thanked him for leading him on a successful journey, because that's what he had prayed for. And I got to thinking, do we pray that for our lives? Like, we are servants of God. And I had to just think, you know, we may live in obscurity in this life, but we don't have to live in obscurity forever. And God says that he sees what we do. As a matter of fact, in Matthew 7, it says, not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but the one who does the will of my Father in heaven. So it's important to do the will of the Father in heaven. And he says to some, he declared to them, I never knew you, depart from me, you workers of lawlessness. So there's some people who are going to think they're going to get to heaven, but they never knew Jesus. So the important thing is that we know God, right? And that we are faithful and that we do his will. And if that's the case, the Bible tells us that where our names are written in the book of life, right? And so he knows our name. So the important thing is, and here is the bottom line of what I'm trying to say, is we can live in obscurity in this life, and it doesn't really matter. It matters that we're faithful to God. It matters that we know his name. And it really matters for eternity. It has eternal consequences whether he knows our name, whether our names are written in the book of life. And if they're written in the book of life, if we faithfully served him, he's going to say, well done, thou good and faithful servant. He will know our name and will forever get to be with him. So don't get discouraged. Don't give up. Keep walking every day, even in the small things. Pray that you follow the Master and you do His will, and that He leads you successfully on this journey, because no matter how small it is, God sees everything and He knows your name. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time on The Bottom Line.